does not. Disturbing is this move by Chancellor Palpatine.
Hey there folks, welcome to another episode of Marvelous Videos. Today, we explore one of the greatest mysteries of the Star Wars universe, the species of Yoda and the Grandmasters of the Jedi. Every character's tales is filled with legacy, power, and unanswered questions. Their origins and roles have been deliberately kept a secret to keep fans guessing over the decades. Brace yourselves, because we are about to uncover the known, the unknown, and the reason these secrets shape the Star Wars world. Let's get into it.
Then now, the time is, Commander. Yes, sir.
The enigma of Yoda's species. There is hardly a more loved and mysterious character in the Star Wars galaxy than Yoda, the wizened green Jedi Grandmaster, first introduced in The Empire Strikes Back, has been a symbol of wisdom, patience, and immense power for decades. And yet, for all the expansive world-building Star Wars has done, naming planets, defining alien cultures, explaining obscure ship parts, here's one secret that has stubbornly remained untouched, which are the origins and nature of Yoda's species. George Lucas himself deliberately chose to keep Yoda's kind shrouded in mystery, a decision that has only deepened the character's legend. According to Lucas, part of Yoda's magic was that he was something older, rarer, and more mysterious than even the Jedi archives could explain. What little we do know comes from the rare glimpses we've had of Yoda's kin over decades of storytelling. The first came in 1999's The Phantom Menace, when audiences spotted Yaddle, a female of the same species, sitting quietly on the Jedi Council. She had no dialogue, but her mere presence confirmed that Yoda wasn't entirely unique. Years later, The Mandalorian introduced Grogu, instantly nicknamed Baby Yoda by fans, who captivated the galaxy with his oversized eyes, tiny hands, and adorable attempts at wielding the Force. Between these three, Yoda, Yaddle, and Grogu, we have the only confirmed members of the species in Star Wars canon, and all share one striking trait, which is an extraordinary connection to the Force. That Force sensitivity has sparked endless theories about their origins. Did they originate on a planet saturated with the Force itself, which, in turn, is in harmony with life? Were they perhaps shaped or chosen by the Force in some unique way, destined to produce individuals of staggering power? It is unlikely a coincidence that all the known members are Force-sensitive, with Yoda being one of the most powerful Jedi of all time. It is clear that the Jedi Order was aware of the existence of the species, and even among themselves, it never disclosed its origins. Physically, the species has a handful of defined traits. They are small, averaging not more than 2 feet tall in adulthood, with skin that is green. Their eyes are large and expressive, and they have long, pointed ears. They have a tridactyl foot and hand, each with 3 bulky fingers and toes. It may not look like it, but they are big. They are surprisingly tough and swift when they need to be. Their life cycle is exceptional. When Yoda joined the Force, he was nearly 900 years old, and Grogu, at the age of 50, remained just a toddler. This prolonged lifespan also influences how they develop, so that what is childhood to other species is decades to them. They also happen to be carnivores, which was observed when Grogu cheerfully eats frogs and other small animals. The reason why George Lucas chose not to explain the species of the character Yoda was purely that he did not want to take away the element of the mystical. In Star Wars, the Force functions optimally when it is a thing of mystery. By leaving Yoda's origins unspoken, Lucas ensured the character would always remain partly beyond our understanding. Even in modern Star Wars storytelling, where lore is constantly expanded, this particular boundary has held firm. The Mandalorian gave us more of Grogu's backstory, but stopped just short of revealing his species or homeworld. Writers and producers have acknowledged that this is intentional. Lucas's no species name rule still influences the canon today. That creative restraint has turned Yoda's people into one of Star Wars' most enduring fan obsessions. Theories range from the plausible to the wild. Others theorize that the species is native to a secretive world with a high concentration of the Force, such as Mortis, the spiritual realm that debuted in the Clone Wars. Some claim them to be direct creations of the Force, just as Anakin Skywalker, tasked with the sole purpose to bring balance in millennia. Some even go so far as to suggest that they may have existed even before the Jedi and the Sith lived, serving as custodians of the Force, even before the written record began. Because there's so little official information, every fan theory, no matter how far-fetched, has room to thrive. In the absence of hard facts, every new appearance of the species carries weight. Yaddle's brief canon return in Tales of the Jedi sheds light on her personality and bravery. At the same time, Grogu's slow but steady growth in The Mandalorian offers a living window into how one of these beings learns, bonds, and survives. Each glimpse adds texture without dismantling the core mystery. That careful balance, giving fans more without giving them everything, has kept interest alive for decades. Every known member, Yoda, Yaddle, and Grogu. Over the decades of Star Wars storytelling, very few questions have been more enduring than the one that wonders what the species of Yoda would be. Despite decades of films, television series, comics, novels, and fan speculation, only a handful of members of this race have ever been seen, and almost nothing is known about their origins, homeworld, or customs. The most famous of them all, of course, is Master Yoda, who is the archetype of wisdom in Star Wars and one of the most revered figures in the Jedi Order's long history. Yoda is a Jedi Grandmaster who lived through centuries, thus becoming one of the living pillars of the Order. Whether mentoring younglings in their initial practice with a lightsaber, advising Jedi Knights, and even Masters on issues of galactic order, Yoda was able to make an impact. His actions throughout the Clone Wars, which turned out to be controversial retrospectively because the Jedi had engaged in politics, revealed his strong dedication to preserving peace and justice. Even during his later years, when he went into exile on Dagobah following the defeat of the Jedi, Yoda was a guardian of the Force and trained Luke Skywalker to rebalance the Force. To this, his wisdom and mischievous humor at times sealed his place as one of the most favorite characters in the saga. Yaddle was mentioned briefly in The Phantom Menace, and is frequently forgotten by casual fans, but has since become a curious character to hardcore fans. Yaddle was calm and thoughtful, gentle, and radiating kindness. Her leadership style was, however, not as stern as Yoda's, rather inclined to patience and compassion. She did not play a speaking role in The Phantom Menace, but later canon, especially in Tales of the Jedi, developed her into a much more interesting and tragic figure. In that arc, she challenges Count Dooku following her intuition that he is becoming disillusioned and that a dark cloud of the Sith is above him. She tries to reason with him, but does not succeed, and makes the final sacrifice as she falls in a fight. In this story, Yaddle was not simply a pretty face, but served to remind us of how the Jedi who struggled in turbulent times were jeopardized. Her death was also a part of what makes the loss of the Jedi Order even more shattering, since another great light was now snuffed out before the Clone Wars even started. Then there is Grogu, the newest and perhaps most mysterious member of the species in Star Wars canon. First appearing in The Mandalorian, Grogu immediately drew viewers in with his big eyes, expressive ears, and innocent, childish aspect, and was nicknamed Baby Yoda before the character was given an official name. There is, of course, more depth to the adorable nature of the backstory. Now, Grogu is over 50, which makes him still a child by the standards of his species, which makes their extremely slow aging process extra notable. Despite his age, he already shows high levels of affinity with the Force, as he can use it to heal wounds, move objects, and even prevent harm to allies through sheer force of will. As a flashback shows, he was at the Jedi Temple at the dawn of Order 66 when, just before the massacre, he escaped with his life. The fact that he managed to survive during the years that were to follow is not well explained, and those gaps in his history appear to be creating speculations. Traveling with Din Djarin, Grogu's story now straddles two worlds, the way of the Mandalorian and the path of the Jedi. And his ultimate destiny remains one of the most intriguing open questions in current Star Wars storytelling. The rarity of these individuals is one of the greatest curiosities of the Star Wars universe. Across all canon, only Yoda, Yaddle, and Grogu are confirmed members of the species. In Legends continuity, other figures appear, such as Jedi Master Vandar Tok'er from the Knights of the Old Republic era. As with his canon version, Vandar was a mature and skilled Jedi, further cementing the notion that individuals within this race nearly always become heavily connected to the Force. It is unknown whether this is a genetic predisposition, a cultural tradition of Force training, or something completely different. There is speculative interest in the coherent Force sensitivity of known members. Was their species somehow naturally connected to the Force, as the Kyber crystals were naturally connected to lightsabers? Or is it that they live longer, possibly over 900 years, and hence have more time to get to know each other better? The absence of answers contributes to the fact that their appearances are made even more important. Every time a new member of this species is introduced, it feels like an event, because each one carries an unspoken promise. They are destined to matter. Part of the enduring appeal of Yoda's species is the way it resists overexposure. George Lucas himself famously restricted writers from delving too deeply into their backstory, insisting that the mystery was part of their power. That creative choice has paid off. Decades later, fans are still debating their homeworld, their culture, and the reason for their apparent rarity. In a universe where so many alien races are fully mapped and explained, the species remains one of the few that is still largely shrouded in secrecy. The destiny of the Jedi Grandmasters. The Jedi Grandmaster was the supreme head of the Jedi Order, always making decisions, training the generations of Jedi, and determining the fate of the galaxy. Yoda is the bearer of this title, who lived more than 8 centuries, and he took part in the most important events that marked the Republic and the Order. He was in charge of the Council at the time of the Sith's rise, the Clone Wars, and the eventual fall of the Jedi. He had trained many Padawans, guided generals, and fought with the failures of the Republic's politics. His actions, both in his strategic leadership and training Luke Skywalker during the exile period of the Jedi, played a crucial role in keeping the name of the Jedi alive, even though the Order was falling. The death of Yoda had placed a gap in the galaxy's balance in the Force, and the old Jedi Order ended. Luke Skywalker found himself in a different scenario. The Jedi had become an endangered species, and the Grandmaster's honor was now as much a rebuilding position as a leading one. In Legends, Luke established the new Jedi Order. He trained a new generation of Jedi Knights, the new Jedi Order, who went through internal and external strife and battles, such as the Yuuzhan Vong. He officially took up the title of Grandmaster and made decisions that defined the structure and philosophy of the Order. The development of Ben to the dark side, however, led to the exile of Luke to the island of Ahch-To, killing the revival of the Jedi. His term demonstrates that Grandmaster position is not only a leadership position that bears the burden of the Order's shortcoming, but also the position that requires adjusting to crises. The concept of the last Grandmaster underscores the shifting significance of the role. The term is described by the idea of the final Grandmaster, which highlights the changing meaning of the position. The Council lost its most experienced guide in the death of Yoda. The partial restoration of the Order by Luke provided temporary stability. However, following his demise, there was no successor in canon to represent this position. At the time of the sequel trilogy, Rey is the only remaining Jedi, where she faces all the roles of the Grandmaster with no title and no council to serve her. The burden of the role has been moved away from institutional power to personal responsibility, where the survival, teaching, and legacy fall to the person rather than the institution. Regardless of wisdom, Yoda had to make certain choices that contributed to the downfall of the Jedi. Luke was struggling to find the strategic balance between tradition and adaptation, between assembling an order out of disconnected pieces and foreseeing the threats to the galaxy. Rey has to bear both physical and spiritual responsibilities of the previous Jedi all by herself. A single decision of each of the Grandmasters affected the galaxy and influenced how the Jedi would be viewed in the future. The tale of the Grandmaster cannot be told without the tale of the Jedi themselves. With it being present or not, the position of the role indicates either a functioning order that has the power to affect events, or the weak position of the Jedi Order and the instability of the peace of the galaxy. Yoda, with all his centuries of direction to Luke and his reconstruction efforts, all the way to Rey now alone with her survival, the role has adapted to situations as the order of ways adjust. Though in these changes, the title means one constant, and that is why the duty to defend, inform, and safeguard the lives of the Jedi, even when the Order itself had ceased to exist traditionally. why their fates remain a mystery. Uncertainty about the species of Yoda and the ultimate destiny of Jedi Grandmasters is planned to add narrative tension and keep the story open to creative interpretation. George Lucas deliberately never revealed the origins of Yoda, never even giving his species a name or a homeworld. The purpose of this decision was to keep Yoda mysterious, focusing more on his wisdom, longevity, and attachment to the Force, rather than his physical nature. According to Lucas, telling everything may rob the character of mystery. Disney and Lucasfilm have adhered to this practice, and even in the success of Grogu, or Baby Yoda, in The Mandalorian, they have restrained canonical information by making the species scarce and enigmatic. Every introduction bears the mark of significance and importance in the Force, rendering dramatic weight to every new character. As we have already stated, the centuries of Yoda's leadership influenced the Jedi Order. Yaddle sat on the council with wisdom and advice up until her death. The Mandalorian training Grogu demonstrates that the species remains relevant even in galactic affairs. Expanded universe material and fan speculation have suggested lost homeworlds, distinct cultures, or mysterious Force origins. But these concepts are not official. The fate of future Jedi Grandmasters is also not so clear. The death of Yoda left the Order to lack its longest-serving leader, and when Luke Skywalker subsequently attempted to reconstruct the Jedi, the institution was never fully restored. At the end of The Rise of Skywalker, Rey is the sole Jedi and inheritor to the legacy of the Grandmasters with no formal title or council. Timelines of legends examine various successors and larger orders. However, Disney has intentionally not defined the role of the Grandmaster explicitly in canon. Such uncertainty in the narrative means the flexibility of storytelling and leaves room to bring new leaders or variations in future films, series, or books. The unclear definition of the species that Yoda belongs to, as well as the title of Grandmaster, has its thematic explanation. Both are symbols of legacy, duty, and burden of the Force. It is deliberate that their fates remain as unknown as they do in all creator statements, canon materials, and even strategic storytelling decisions. Such mysteries could be further addressed in the future with subsequent series and novels. However, at least in the short term, the unknown serves as a source of intrigue among fans as well as narrative tension, so the species of Yoda and the Jedi Grandmasters remains an interesting part of the universe in the continued story. Marvelous verdict. And that brings us to the end of our deep dive about the species of Yoda and the legacy of the Jedi Grandmasters. The story traces the development of the galaxy through mystery, strength, and responsibility in long-lasting leadership by Yoda, the efforts of Luke to restore the Order, and Rey, who brought light to the galaxy immediately. The lack of knowledge about the final Grandmasters and the scarcity of the species to which Yoda belongs keeps the plot going, with future twists and tales yet to be told. Do you think we'll ever know the whole truth, or will we have mysteries forever? Tell us what you think and what your favorite moments are in the comments below. And as always, stay curious and stay marvelous.